Never mind. I'm going to have to cut this part because...
Oh, God.
Because I was about to say, like, will, like, deign to, like, come give us the trophy.
Oh, my God. Jeez.
Whatever. They fucking deserve it. Yeah, I definitely can't keep this in, but that's fine. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network, and brought to you by Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC. I'm your host, Phil Bakke, and I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Mikka Borelli. Mikka, how's your Sunday night treating you?
Pretty good. Feels like it's been a little bit since I've been on the pod. I know I had to miss out last time, so good to be back.
Yeah, I know it's been a weird couple of weeks for recording in general. So luckily
sure.
back on track here. But
damn, it's not even been a minute and we already said a train pun. You gotta forgive us, guys.
Inside the first minute. Yeah. Hopefully no one keeps track of the train puns, because we might go off the rails a little bit. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God.
It's been a little crazy. Luckily we're back, and Locomotive's back to winning ways as well. A 2-0 win over Sac Republic, which we will recap after a couple of tougher results. Yeah, I mean, before we dive into it, if you guys are finding us for the first time, you can find the podcast on all the major podcast platforms, basically wherever you get your podcasts, and you can find us on social media at Seriously Loco. There you'll find all kinds of different takes about what's going on, memes, us interacting with the Locos admin, trying to get the retweets, and my thoughts during games of what's occurring. So so check us out. But Mikka, we've got a recap of the game against Sac Republic from yesterday. We've got listener questions. A handful came in, and then we're going to be previewing the upcoming Colorado Springs game, which, I mean, Colorado Springs, they've taken on this weird trajectory this year where they've decided to be like suddenly in the mix at the top of the mountain rather than our traditional, I guess, like, oh, let's gloss over Colorado Springs because they're, the cellar dwellers.
Yeah, they're demanding to be taken seriously this season, and I think I said at the beginning of the season, I hope they give the fans a show at their new stadium. So we'll get on to that. So far, so sure.
Good. On the other hand, Sac Republic, ever since they got the MLS snub, this feels like quite the different team. And Sac Republic came to El Paso without a former Locomotive player of some note. Jerome Kiesewetter on the books with Sacramento, but didn't make the trip.
Yeah, I was really hoping that it would be a homecoming for Jerome. I was pretty surprised that he wasn't even an option for them, given the fact that they were on the road and they could use the depth, especially in those goal scoring areas. So maybe next time, hopefully we'll see Keese again at the swap.
The Sacramento's season had been, well, it's been mixed results, I guess you'll say, out in the Pacific. They've had some not so bad games recently, but they definitely weren't coming in like flying form or anything like that. And in fact, it was just a win over Las Vegas their last time out. And before then they hadn't won since August 14th. So it's been a little bit of a drought. And that was a win over Vegas as well. So really only the one team that they can get one over. But I guess the story of this match overall was Locomotive were essentially in control of the match from start to finish, and Sac Republic like really didn't threaten at all, and in the literal sense didn't fashion a shot on target.
Yeah, it was shocking, I have to say, just because Sacramento Republic are a pretty storied side in USL Championship, and like you mentioned, they were being looked at by MLS to be one of the next expansion teams, and that has fallen through. And it doesn't. I don't know if it's a coincidence that they've been kind of poor since, at least by their standards. It's been a miserable summer for them. There was one point where they went 9 games winless, and they've started to pick it up as of recently. But yeah, this visit to the Swamp it's just another victim of Locomotive at home. But I think this might have been the lamest performance I've seen from a team we were hosting. I was really surprised. And I think, I think it's fair to say you were too, because we were kind of concerned by our starting lineup and wondering how our midfield would cope.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those weird ones where I guess, and I think sometimes we can let reputations kind of get to us in a way where Sacramento Republic, like traditionally, as you said, is just a tough side. Like they're normally one of the better sides in USL in the West. Like they're always competitive, and this drop off, like ever since the MLS snub has been really it's put them in a different category of club, and the change happened without there being like a noticeable, like it hasn't happened in the same way that I guess you see like some of the stuff around Bold and like and all this stuff where it's like there wasn't this mass exodus or anything like that. Like even a player who was really heralded, Thomas Enevoldsen, like he's still on the books and like just doesn't really play that much anymore. And so, yeah, just some really odd like things have gone on around this club, and it's gone, I guess, like mostly under the radar, but the performance just isn't there. And so it was really surprising to see like Mark go with, it was surprising from a reputational aspect, but I think Mark like picked his spot exactly right in that he gives Nick Ross a rest, which, in a big match, Nick's never going to start on the bench. I don't think, like in the, he's Mark's go-to guy in midfield. So when we saw the midfield two of Brahim and Richie with, the likes of Diego, Seba and Dylan all starting in front of him, we thought, might be a little light, in terms of that midfield coverage. But yeah, Sacramento, I mean, they didn't put a glove on us the entire night. It was basically, shadow boxing, whatever you want to call it. But we just kept them at arm's length for about, 88 minutes or whatever it was before the penalty concession. But yeah, the lineup a little bit of a, I think we were, there was a lot going on pre-match where we're like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But yeah, Sacramento didn't really find a way to exploit any of the space. I feel like they barely had the ball.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you said about the Richie Brahim pivot, I think the concerns were that we know Brian likes to kind of bomb on and get involved in the attack, be on the edge of the area, and Richie, God bless him, but he's not the most mobile guy on the pitch. So to leave him kind of alone to anchor midfield can be problematic. But, it ended up not even being a problem because Sacramento Republic just did not show up. We get all 3 of the big creators on the pitch at the same time, Luna, Seba, and Dylan Mares. And I think it was Jake Konecki, a longtime listener, who pointed out that it felt very fluid. Like all 3 of them could really just pick up the space where the other leaves and interchange and play make for each other. And they all, I think, except Mares, they both get on except for Dylan Mares, the others get on the score sheet with some really good assists. So, yeah. And not to mention, we sat Lucho as well. I mean, right. At this point, when Lucho's not starting, to me, it's like, I should take it as a sign that we're not taking this game too seriously.
Yeah.
Not to say that we disrespect the opposition or whatever, but obviously Mark and his staff knew that this was an opportunity for rest for those guys. I wasn't expecting it. I was definitely expecting much better from Sacramento Republic. They were shocking, like truly shocking.
Yeah.
I think definitely the weakest opposition we've seen at the Swap this season.
And I mean, it's funny because I think there's other matches we look at in the season where a team comes in to the Swap and falls flat. Like Indy is like the primest example, I think. And not that Indy's had like a barnstormer of a season either, but the fact that we can make like decent teams like look pretty decidedly average or even like poor, as right. Indy did, and in this case, like this is I would say definitely a struggling Sacramento Republic side that came into the Swap and like they were just never getting anything out of this one. The clean sheet, like how important do you think that is? Not just in the fact that like they don't allow the goals, but the manner in which the team asserted themselves, I guess, and didn't let even like one moment get away from them. I mean, they allow 5 shots, 0 of which were on target. So this, how big is that, I guess, in terms of this defense, which, you know, the clean sheets had dried up a little bit, and they get one here, and
I think the
impressive one as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think the clean sheet is very important. Like you said, we hadn't the past 4 games. I think going back all the way to Bold, I don't think we'd had a clean sheet. So it's nice to get another one for Logan. I think he's now tied for second in the USL Championship, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah.
You know, it's not even heroics that get us this one. It's just the fact that Logan was not really tested all night long. And, you know, maybe that has something to do with why he concedes the penalty. And I'm sure we'll get onto that. But, yeah, it's great. We were definitely defending from the front. Yeah. I think that was really the big thing tactically that I noticed is we were doing our normal press and forcing them into the wide areas and getting the ball back immediately. Diego Luna, key among the pressers. Yeah. Very impressive from the young man again. You know, as usual, even when he's not scoring himself, and, you know, he does get a goal involvement in this one, but even when he's not, he's always good for chasing balls and recovering loose balls. So, the press is what really, I think, helped us sustain for 90 minutes and keep the ball really out of dangerous areas for ourselves. So yeah, clean sheet's always great. It
felt like Richie too, like for as much as we talked about like the mobility and everything. And I think we have seen in some matches, like people are able to exploit that a little bit. This match in particular did feel like Richie was winning the ball back like quite a bit, and kind of stopping the attack when they did try to go through the center, which, you know, was not that frequent, but it just seemed like he was mopping up really well and just cleaning up the danger, like when it started to build, which I feel like relieved a lot of pressure as well. And then certainly, as you said, like that press in the forward areas, there were a few times I thought Diego like had done something like cloaked himself or something, because like they were making passes and he was just there, you know, it was like they were passing the ball to him at times. So
right.
But the other significance of this game is that it is the 20th straight match unbeaten in Southwestern University Park for Locomotive. They've transformed. I mean, Duke and Heidi talk about it on the broadcasts. They call it a fortress, and I think it's safe to say that it is, you know, established as one now that they've got this record to lean on.
Yeah, absolutely. The swamp is definitely a fortress. I think there'd be a moat around it if we weren't in the desert. um, it's a really perilous place to play, and I think the league knows that, to be honest, because again, I mean, I think we've covered it. Sacramento Republic has been struggling a little bit, but even this side and New Mexico United and San Antonio and RGV, teams like that are really experienced. I mean, they kind of can shrivel at the swap too. We've seen that. And yeah, it's always great to know that when you're at home, it's more than likely going to be a good result. Gives the fans confidence, keeps people coming through the turnstiles, because let's be honest, that's really important at our level. And yeah, it keeps the players, I think, motivated, because those road games can be slogs. So it's nice that they can come home and just express themselves. And so 20 games unbeaten is, nothing to bat an eye at. It's crazy. That's a crazy record.
Yeah. I think the confidence too of, I think in the first season, especially, we talked about, how there could be like nerves associated with the expectation from a new fan base and a new, the city building this connection with the team. I think now it's shown over the span of the years, and now especially as they continue this unbeaten streak, 20 straight games, it just solidifies like so much of what we've talked about this year, where that connection between the team and the fans and the city in a larger sense, like, is so solidified now that I feel like they carry a lot of confidence. Like, the players play with a different air about them when they're in Southwest University Park. And I think, just even Logan giving credit for the missed penalty from Formella, it came, he basically gave Eighth Notch like credit for the save, in that they had gotten so in the head of Formella when he took the pen. So I just think they've turned it into a seething cauldron, as they would say, and it's awesome, like, that one. I think a lot of people hope that they can create something like that in a lot of places, but the fact that they've done it in El Paso, I don't think it surprises anyone in El Paso that they've made the swap into a tough place to play, but yeah, I don't think anyone in the league is gonna they're gonna look at that trip on the calendar and put a skull and crossbones over it. They may as well just already like, we're not getting anything out of this.
Yeah. And with the way playoff seeding works, I think we would be hosting, right? So, I mean, it's not for nothing that we're making sure we get all the results we can at home, because that could prove very, very vital, come postseason time. So yeah,
for sure. Well, let's talk about the goals. The first comes pretty early on. Second phase of a set piece for both of these goals. I get, referred to as like the corners initially played in, but the ball's held in, and it's that second phase is like what we're referring to when we talk about that. And so this goal from Gomez, the ball floated in from Diego Luna, and a good header back across from Gomez. You remarked immediately in the group chat about this cross from Diego Luna, like, just how good of a ball in is this for Gomez to open the scoring?
Yeah, I remarked on it by shouting an expletive, but yes, it reminded me of Diego's very first goal involvement for Locomotive. He loves that high, like, deep chipped cross to the far post, and he's so good at it. I mean, I think it would have been harder for Josue to miss, to be honest, but Luna puts it right on his head, and it's a harder finish, I think, than we give him credit for. He has to like loft that header and pass the keeper, and it's everything about it is just aesthetically pleasing, as much as how it was important to the result. So, I mean, the two of them combining, the veteran striker and the star boy, I mean, you love to see it. And it was just superb. And Diego was superb all night, as he usually is. I mean, like I said earlier, just defensively, recovering the ball and doing all the dirty work, but also getting himself on the score sheet as well, as he usually does. Yeah,
and a little unlucky actually, like as the game carried on, to not add a goal himself. Like there were a couple of moments where I thought I thought he might actually just grab one himself, and went close a couple of times, but just missed the target. And I think I felt for Diego. So he creates the goal from the left side, but he was playing on the right side of our actual attack, and I felt for him in the first half because he's attacking through the infield, and like the infield was in a state on Saturday really night. Like it was brutal, like worse than normal. The outfield grass was it seemed in good shape, and it seemed like the ball was zipping around on it, like seemed like a really great surface for the players, but that infield just like I don't know, it's like watching it. You saw a player dribble into it.
Maybe that's why Sac kept like seemingly passing it to Diego, because he was recovering the ball in that infield area. Yeah, the pitch was awful. If there's anything you can knock Locomotive for the other night, it's that. But yeah, baseball season's kind of getting into the business end. So it's not been great, unfortunately. But the second goal comes from a similar situation. Oh, actually, before we move on from Gomez's goal, I do just want to shout out. So Josue Aron Gomez, one, grabbing a goal like when he's getting the start for Lucho, like in place of Lucho, obviously very big in terms of he is, that striking depth. And in fact, like, I mean, him and Lucho start together quite often as well. Seeing him get on the score sheet, obviously a positive. I think this is of his 5 goals this season, 4 of them have been with his head. And and this one in particular, the only thing that I will say is like the ball is good. The idea is exactly right in terms of like he puts it back the way it came, heads it back across goal, makes it really tough on the keeper. But that lofted cross, like in order to generate the power required to actually direct it back across goal is not easy. So Gomez does quite well to just to get the required power on it while still keeping it, under the bar. And brilliant header, I thought, and brilliant pick out from Diego. A solid goal all around. But a confidence boost for Gomez as well, like just getting that early goal, and then he was actually, I think they picked him as the Estrella of the match at the end of the game, which we could have many debates about who the player of the match was for Locomotive, but yeah, got his reward. Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's important that Gomez scores at this juncture in our season, because we know he can be a bit streaky, and I'd rather him be scoring now as we head towards postseason. So yeah.
The second goal, as we said, from the second phase of a set piece as well. This one was cleared out rather than the first was just kind of like held in by Locomotive. This one's actually kind of cleared out. Mishak collects it, plays a brilliant crossfield pass that Seb Velasquez just kills on his left foot. And then he takes on his man, who I can't remember. He was getting cooked all night. Was it McCrary?
Him or Casey? I think
it was Jordan McCrary out there on the right. He absolutely cooks him, gets to the byline, and I think we've seen that sort of move from Locomotive's forwards this year, and most often they're going to float that ball to the back post, and similar to kind of the style of Luna's, not the same technique, but they're going to try to cut that across and kind of float it in for someone to get a head onto it. But Seba picks his head up and of all people, Eder Borelli is standing on the penalty spot, and he cuts it back to him for a really nice low first time finish from Eder as well. A striker's finish for the left back.
Yeah, man. What? Now that I think about it, I don't know what he was doing there, but I'm glad that he was, because he's on the right side of the area. I don't know. Yeah, really, really nice pick. I mean, the whole sequence is just gorgeous. I mean, Mishak, we know he can quarterback and bomb a ball like that, and he does. Touch for Seb, perfect. The dribble, perfect. And I always love a dribble that actually results in something other than lost possession. So. Yeah, he totally cooks his defender and finds the one open man, Borelli, who, you know, you could say it's poor defending. Why is he wide open? But at the same time, are they really checking for the left back? I don't know. So yeah, he finds Eder really well, and it's a really nice, like, hard struck finish. I mean, it's really easy in that situation to lean back and completely sky it. So
yeah,
you know, good on Eder, because I think he does a lot of the dirty work, a lot of the physical work, and maybe doesn't get the praise that he deserves, but you can't ignore him when he scores a goal, right? So, yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, he actually ended as the highest rated Locomotive player in the match according to FOTMob's ratings. So,
there you go.
Yeah. Just a solid performance overall. I think, obviously punctuated by the goal, but also, good passing performance, 83% pass success for a guy who's lofting crosses into the box as well. So that's pretty solid percentage. And then I think he, along with the rest of Locomotive's backline, they were able to be a little bit more progressive because they were just not really threatened throughout most of the 90 minutes. I mean, I joked at one point during the second half that Mikka King had transcended positioning because he was essentially playing it as a midfielder. That he wasn't playing right back anymore. He had moved into central midfield and was actually making runs like inside of Rebellon at times, which was just so funny to me because he obviously is playing, presumably like on the right side of the defense, but making some real Pep Guardiola, Kyle Walker moves in there.
No, I mean, that's absolutely right. We know Pep Guardiola loves his underlapping fullbacks, and Mikka was underlapping midfielders. I mean, he was in some weird positions when the ball would reach him. And I mean, I don't blame him because it was space to attack, and he likes to get involved with things. But I think against a better side, we might pay for that. But, Brian would quickly, fill that space and just shows that, positional play. I mean, everyone can fill in and total football, if you will. But yeah, it was pretty funny to see Mikka like on the wing, like left wing at times, and like behind the strikers. So
yeah, and Eder the striker, and yeah, everybody was switching it up.
Everyone was just vibing.
Yeah, and they were free to. Yeah, shout out to Mishak as well for the goal that wasn't. Because we had a free kick early on in the first half. I think it was like 15 minutes in. Dylan's over the free kick, lays it off to Diego. Diego backheels it, and Mishak absolutely leathers this ball. And that ball was moving. And unfortunately saved, and then Gomez couldn't finish the rebound, but that was just a clean hit from Mishak, and he's unlucky that a strike of that quality. Like, I think oftentimes we see Mishak hit the ball really hard, and right. Maybe it's not on target. I know he hit the post like season 1, I think, at one point with one of those, but this one, it was on target. It was traveling, and I just wish we had been allowed to see that bulge the back of the net, because I think the swap would have been up for grabs if Mishak hits a thunderbolt like that.
I know. I think that probably was the closest he's gotten, right, from that position. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yep. It's gonna be in a big like context. It's got to be, we're saving it for like, I'm thinking season 1, like James Kiffey against Fresno, like that.
Fact.
Just like, just like of all people, like hitting a banger, like in a must win game in the playoffs. So, but going back to the fluidity of this team and the way that guys were interchanging in this game, you pointed out that Jake Konecki, a longtime listener of the show, had pointed out like that this lineup felt really fluid. And he actually asked a question. He said, do you think this 3-man attacking midfield is going to be Mark's like go-to lineup going forward? It seemed to work to its full potential against Sac Republic. So what do you think about the inclusion of all 3 attacking midfielders? Because we've seen it in other games, and it maybe hasn't worked quite so well on the road, but in this one, it definitely seemed like they were enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I mean, when you see Luna, Mares, Velasquez line up together, that's quite an attack. And then, put any one of our forwards, Solignac or Gomez, and they're going to eat, right? Mm-hmm. And, in this one, it's hard to argue that it didn't work. Luna and Velasquez both get assists. They both played really, really well. I don't know. I never like to say that Mark's going to stick with any one thing because, as we know, Mark changes it up quite a bit.
Sure.
Depending on the opposition, especially lately. Like, I feel like we haven't been as married to the diamond lately as we have been in the past. So if he sticks with it, I wouldn't be upset about it. I think it's really exciting. But at the same time, I think also, especially when it comes to Diego Luna, we've seen where Velasquez and Mares, they'll start more often with each other than with Diego because he's got to rest and all that kind of thing. So
sure.
Yeah, it did. I agree, Jake. I think it did work to its full potential last night, but I wonder if we just kind of smelled blood and thought it's Sac Republic, like, and we're at home. Let's just throw everyone on there and see what happens. So I don't know. I think against better opposition, we'd need a bit more balance.
Yeah. I think that the extra midfielder, it really does depend so much on the opposition and what they're going to try to do, because I think for teams that we know are going to play direct and like try to play on the counter, this actually makes a lot of sense. Like if they're going to try to bypass the midfield anyways, we may as well just like add another attacking body on there. Whereas like the teams that are going to try to like play through it and play through the midfield and actually like create, from back to front, then that extra body in midfield, like just to occupy more space, like we've talked about in the past, just to cut those passing lanes and all of those things. Like I think makes more sense. But yeah, in a game like today, especially, or a game like Saturday, when there's the opportunity to get another like talent of the quality of those guys, to add that in a game where we think, hey, we're probably going to have a lot of the ball anyways. Like they're not really going to be looking to play through our midfield that much. So we may as well just like add some extra oomph in the attack. And in this case, It also worked to our advantage in the press because Diego was pressing like an absolute monster on the wing. So yeah, it helped in that sense too. Cause if he's more central, then maybe he doesn't have the opportunity, or if it is, Dylan or Seba, then obviously Diego's got the youthful exuberance to press, and not to say that those guys don't for sure, because they absolutely do. And but yeah, I totally agree that I think the fluidity that it gives us, and just the options it gives us, especially against teams that are going to be a little bit more direct, it makes total sense. And it seems like Mark's tried to pick his spots, to make the best use of that. And I think he got it spot on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely.
So it wasn't all like sunshine and rainbows on Saturday. Like it was a classy and professional 2-0 win. But there are a couple of question marks coming out of this one. And I mean, the big one, Mikka, for sure is Yuma comes off at halftime and is replaced by Matt Boehner for an apparent groin injury. Not really sure the extent of it. Like, you could speculate based on like what he was doing on the field, like if it was some sort of like impact injury rather than like a muscle injury. But Yuma coming off, he's been, along with Mishak, that has been the center back pairing. So half of our basically everyday center backs going off the field, not exactly the most encouraging thing, given we don't know the extent of the injury. And add on top of that, Andrew Fox back on the injured list as well with a hamstring issue. So now a little light at options at center back all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yuma, it's hard to, you can't overstate how important Yuma is to this side. I mean, not only is it a blow in terms of defensive depth, but just for the way that we play in our possession game. I mean, Yuma is second in USL Championship for passes. You know, he's made the second most passes in the league. So, you know, we know he and Mishak really are the quarterbacks back there. And, you know, I have no doubt that Matt Boehner can fill in admirably. But, you know, with Foxy out too, it's definitely an issue. Mishak, even before Yuma's injury, even before Foxy's injury, Mishak's really the only like tried and true center back, right? So, I don't know if we're at a point in the season where we can maybe add somebody, even if it's on loan or what have you, or if we just want to make do with Boehner. And Boehner's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I just wonder how that'll impact us kind of playing out from the back, because Yuma's crucial to that. So, but, you know, for the player's sake, I really hope that it's nothing serious. It did look very uncomfortable, though. I mean, he was down, kind of clutching his groin, and then the sprinklers came on, and he laid back down. Like, that's never a good sign. Like, he needed to be helped off. And, you know, as you said, Boehner came on straight away after halftime. So, we don't know much more than that, but it didn't look great.
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering correctly as well, let me check my mentions real quick, because I think someone may have spotted and actually said that Yuma wasn't on the bench, like he didn't stay on the bench, like he was down the tunnel and he like was receiving treatment in the second half, like he didn't come back out to like watch the second half. You know, often you'll see guys like with the ice packs and all that sort of stuff, like still seated on the bench, like watching the game, but he didn't come back out from the locker room. Apologies to, I want to say it was Eric Bauer, but I'm not positive. So anyways, apologies if you were the one who dropped that hint. I struggle a little bit. I think Boehner, you know, Boehner's a good option for sure. And he was fine, like when Yuma came on. Not that, you know, the defense didn't have like a ton to do, but we've seen basically everything that Matt Boehner's been asked to do this season. Like, he's done well. Like, he's filled in at center back well. He's a very good right back, like, who was only kept out of the team by another very good right back in Maka King. So I think, you know, he can do plenty of jobs. I think he was at left back when Leandro scored his equalizer in Orange County. So like, you know, there's a lot that could that Boehner can do, and he's a more than capable like option. I think the question mark is just like what happens if like something else happens, because we know in the past, like we've been bitten by the injury bug pretty severely at times. And up until this point, we've been relatively unscathed with like major injuries or anything like that. I think Bryam is probably like the longest. He probably had the longest spell on the sideline aside from Foxy. So I just worry a little bit about like if there's one more, I'm not really sure what our backline looks like anymore.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we'd like to be able to rotate, but we can't. So
unless we I mean, is there a scenario where if there was another injury, would we try to recall Niall from Memphis?
That's not the worst idea in the world, and Niall has been very good for Memphis. So he's getting rave reviews out there. So yeah, I mean, maybe
we might talk about Niall
Memphis, but
we might talk about Niall a little bit in the listener questions coming up. But the only other blight on the otherwise like stellar record of this game was the penalty concession right there at the end. It was the substitute for Sac Republic, Malik Foster, who had threatened to get in behind a handful of times, but was offside every single time up until that point. He makes a run off of the back shoulder of the defense. The flag does not go up. I think basically the entire Locomotive back line thought he was offside. And the way the highlight is cut and the way that they were cutting from another camera angle, he does look offside, but it's really tough to tell, like, because I'm sure it was a tight decision, or tighter than it eventually appeared. They're all convinced it's offside, but Logan charges out to try to close down the space, slides out, and Foster goes down. For you watching it, is this a pen I guess in the first place?
Yeah, so in real time, I wasn't able to tell.
Sure.
But on the replay, it doesn't look like Logan touches the ball at any point in that sequence. So I think textbook, it's a penalty, but I think you think it's a dive, right?
So here's my take. I think that because Logan definitely slides out and he definitely doesn't get the ball, but I also don't think that he necessarily makes contact like in a meaningful way, if that makes sense. Like, I think Foster could actually maybe go past Logan, like, because I don't think Logan is trying to at that point like bring him down, because he knows that would be a penalty. And the way Foster's right leg, just like, he doesn't get like chopped down or anything like that. He doesn't get like slid through. I think the second that he feels Logan like coming in, he's already like starting to fall. And the way that right leg goes, it's just like textbook, like, I've been fouled, like, sort of, whatever.
Notice me falling.
Yeah. So for me, it's soft only because I can see why the referee's given it, for sure. And I can see why, like, in that situation, you're basically going to look like, did the keeper get the ball? And like, if not, he's slid into the guy. Like, whether there was actual contact or not, it might be tough to tell because the guy fell. So, so yeah, I can certainly like see why it's been given. And it is uncharacteristic of Logan to not get a situation like that right. So, he was not pleased with the award of the penalty. That much we can say for sure. But the penalty itself. So what did you make of that moment? Do you think that this is is this Logan making a mistake? Like, is this a Logan mistake, or is this like, should he just stand up and try to make a save, or what do you think of this situation?
No, I don't begrudge the decision to try and come out and rush out and close that situation down, because, I mean, Logan does that. We know that, and he's good at it. He's pretty aggressive off his line as a matter of course. My only thing, and this is like really just trying to reach for some kind of like understanding of why this happened, is I think we've seen these kind of situations when Logan's not being tested in a game. Just these like weird occurrences. And I don't know if that means anything. I mean, obviously I would rather him not be pelted, with 10 shots on target every night or whatever. But, it just seems like that's like the only thing I can think of that Logan did was concede a penalty in the game, So, So I don't know. I don't know if he gets bored back there or what. I can't blame him. The defense is good and the opposition was poor. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Really, really minor stuff. And I think by Logan's reaction, that kind of lends credence to your take, which is that, Foster makes the most of it.
Yeah.
And the the referee buys it. So
I do have a extreme amount of respect for Logan Ketterer as well, because he pops up and he is immediately like in the referee's face and is shown a yellow. Whatever he said, like the first thing he said earned him a yellow. But as soon as he was booked, he did not stop. Like he didn't say, "Oh, I've been booked. Like I need to," like he just continued to let the referee have it. And that level of just not fearing, like basically daring the referee to send you off for dissent. That is the level of pettiness like that I'm here for it. Like,
at the end of the day, we want to be entertained, and that shit was entertaining.
It really was. And Logan, like of everybody on the team, like I think everybody has their own style of anger, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and we've seen it in different forms, especially when it comes to refereeing decisions. Like Richie gets that like one strand of hair that's flopping over his face. Like the rest is in place, but he gets the one strand when he's really mad and he's shaking or whatever, screaming at the referee, and he's got the finger point. We've got Yuma, who reasons with everybody, hands behind the back. He says like, no, obviously you've made a poor decision here. Like whatever. Logan, because he's got the shaved head, like you just see you see that man's whole vasculature. Like when he gets pissed, like there's no mistaking it. And quite honestly, like, yeah. So anyways, in that moment, it was, the way he reacted so strongly, I did think that Foster might've gotten away with it a little bit in the sense that it was, probably soft, but in the end, ball don't lie, I guess, from Logan's perspective, like, Formella, puts it wide and, thus ends Sac Republic's match of no shots on target, despite having a 1.32 XG through the penalty, like, over 0.75 of which like went through the penalty.
Yeah, they were so bad that they like broke statistics.
Yeah.
It was a really, really poorly taken penalty. Just not their night, clearly. They were given a lifeline by the referee and it wasn't to be.
Yeah, it was probably too little too late anyways, but
True.
But it was, I mean, they had that moment to maybe like get something going after not being able to do anything all night, and then from the spot 12 yards out to put it wide, it's just I mean, fine for Phil in Sunday League, not fine for a professional, unfortunately. So we Locomotive come away with the 3 points in El Paso, and that leaves them sitting as we've known, top of the mountain. But 45 points, and that is good enough to be 9 points clear of Colorado Springs in second, who have 2 games in hand. Sorry, we have 2 games in hand. They've played 2 additional games, I should say. So still a lot of opportunity to create distance, one of which will be the upcoming game. But first, we've got some listener questions, Mikka. And the first that we'll talk about as we're looking ahead, as we're looking at the schedule, the standings, all these things, is from our friend Kevin Quintana at the KCQ94. Which of the remaining matchups would you consider the most difficult for this squad?
Yeah, I had a look at the remaining fixture list. I think we've got like 12 matches left. Mm-hmm. So certainly getting into the business end of the regular season and preparing for the playoffs. There's a lot of familiar faces in that line, in that table of remaining fixtures. But the one that really jumped out to me And that's only because it's the devil we don't know is OKC Energy.
Sure.
We've only played them twice, and we've never beaten them, including that infamous loss on opening night where we were still like screaming and singing when we had conceded in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, there's a little bit of scar tissue there, and we don't really know that much about them.
Right.
In comparison, obviously, to the other sides that we're facing, the Bolds and that of the world. So, I that kind of keyed on that one as one that could potentially be a banana peel, but we'll see.
I would say, like, it's one of those things where we're headed into this, like, we're about to head into this really busy period where we basically play every 3 days for the entirety of like the end of September through the whole of October.
Great.
And so there's a lot of, I would say that would be a disadvantage for sure because of the congestion. But for whatever reason, like Locomotive seems to be better when they've only had 3 days of rest than when they get a full week or 2 weeks.
Right.
So I don't really see that like as too big of a thing. Although I will say, well, it probably plays in our favor that we've already been to San Antonio twice, a win and a loss, but so we've got San Antonio at home. We've got a trip to Austin, but then we've got Austin at home. The Oklahoma teams are the ones like you said, it's like the devil you don't know. Like we're not exactly sure what to expect. And so FC Tulsa having to go to Tulsa as well on October 9th, having just hosted San Antonio in El Paso 3 days prior, that one is tricky for me. I think only because Eastern Conference foe, even though they were formerly, as recently as last year, they were in the West. I think that team has the potential to be tough, especially at home. And then final day of the season on the road at RGV, just because I hate going to Edinburgh. It's horrible.
Damn, that's how we close out?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
We've traditionally not been good on the last day of the season either, like because we've normally locked up whatever seating and all that stuff. Like, and I remember in season 1 we had a pretty like poor loss to Los Dos on the last day of the season, like having already wrapped up our playoff berth. So yeah, it was I don't know. Hopefully we can get something out of RGV because that has not been a happy hunting ground for us out there. And to do it on All Hallows Eve of all days.
Well, and now I kind of like really care because we could maybe be taking Copa Tejas back to El Paso. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I think it's actually the Bold game in a couple of weeks. Well, 10 days from now. We're recording this on the 12th, and Wednesday, September 22nd, we play Austin Bold in Austin, and I think with a win we can clinch the Copa. I think Bold have to win every single Copa Tejas match to catch us from here. They have to win out. Or so we could even draw, I think, and we could clinch it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, everybody else is already out of the running, so it's just us and Bold.
There we go.
Which is a far cry from the first edition. Which
I know we were so trash.
We were horrible.
Now it's coming back.
We got like 3 points and like no wins. In season 1.
I hope that we have like a trophy lifting. Like I want all of that.
Oh,
I don't care if it's Tim Pot. I want it. I care
every trophy possible. So the next question comes from our another longtime listener of the pod, the Shark at Ramos 5173. Said, postseason seems all but wrapped up for the boys. What are the expectations going into the playoffs? And what would us as fans be satisfied with by the end of the season?
Yeah. I mean, I think the expectations are sky high, right? I mean, 2 back-to-back Western Conference finals. I think we have to take that next step and make an appearance in the final and hopefully win it. Playoffs are always unpredictable. Any knockout competition inevitably has a bit of luck involved.
Sure.
A lot of luck involved, depending on who you ask. So I'd like us to make a deep run and maybe, we win a double. Who knows? We could be double champions by the end of the season. But what would the fans be satisfied with? I mean, I don't know. The fans aren't a monolith. You guys tell us, if you're happy with the way things are going. Is it, trophy or bust? I mean, I think trophy or bust is kind of harsh given the fact that, again, it's a knockout competition. That's really tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's at least the expectation is an appearance in the final.
Yeah. Yeah. I think unfortunately for this team, obviously not unfortunately for them because they're winners and they want to win. That's the mentality. I think if you asked every single member of the team, I think they would say that their expectation is win USL Cup, straight up. I think they are targeting the trophy, and none of them would hedge their bets. They would all say that is the goal. And that's what their expectation of themselves is. I think realistically, you do have to take into account the fact that the playoffs are single elimination. So I think first and foremost, if the team performs as they have over the rest of the regular season and secures home field in the playoffs, that in and of itself will be a certain level of accomplishment in that the team will have shown that continued growth where we went from being a solid, well, not even a solid. We kind of struggled to make the playoffs season one, and we made that late surge to get into the playoffs. Season two, we were, it was never really in question. We were going to the playoffs. The format was different, but we were very solidly in and solid contenders throughout this season. We're gonna go in as one of the top seeded teams in the in the playoffs, most likely. So I think the expectation kind of naturally increases from that because losing an opening round home playoff game is not a thing. Stumbling at that sort of hurdle, especially for a team that expects so highly of themselves. I think that's almost out of the question. So yeah, I think first and foremost, the expectation is get home field in the playoffs. And then if that occurs, then and we get to have these celebrations that are, the home playoff games and the energy and all of the atmosphere around that. Then we just hope we can ride that into a final. Cause I would love to see, I would absolutely live for Phoenix to have to come out to the swap and the road to the final going through El Paso. That there's something just extremely satisfying about, teams having to test themselves, on our terms. And right now the squad is setting the pace to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
So hopefully the fans, I think you would certainly enjoy, home playoff matches. I still think the thing that always comes to mind, unfortunately I wasn't, present for the playoff games last season, but, the playoff game against Sac Republic in the first season will always stick in my mind as one of the coolest sporting moments that I've witnessed live, with those late goals to seal it in the 3-0 win, the noise in there, despite it being it's not the hugest venue or anything that, the swap, but when 10,000 people get going, in a playoff match, and just the energy in there was next level. So I'm sure the swap would be absolutely rocking if they're playing a Western Conference final there or something.
Speaking of which, hashtag get Phil to the swap for the playoffs this season.
I'm about to start a GoFundMe. Start a GoFundMe. Yeah, no, I mean, I will say for sure that if if they go to the final, like, and I mean, in theory, it's probably, well, shit. If they go to the final and it's in El Paso, then like, yeah, I'm getting my ass out there. Like, I don't care what it takes. But yeah, that'd be some kind of vacation, huh? Just block off like playoff month and just stay out there.
Work remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, as people are now like, I mean, we're in the business end of this season, but people are already starting to think about, they're starting to look forward, which, you know, natural instinct of the fans. And so we had a couple of questions, one from at AJ 23005575.
I hope that's not a Russian bot, but
yeah. And then one from at Fernie Elias. And they asked essentially, what are our player retention prospects for next season? And, you know, who's unlikely to return, either because of performance or because of contract or because of maybe they get another opportunity somewhere. And then the last question from Fernie was, who would you bring back at all costs?
Ooh, okay.
And maybe we can start there and then we can go to like the players who we think might not return.
Right. Who would I bring back at all costs? I mean, who would I bring back and who is likely to come back are two different things. But if we're just thinking of if I'm all powerful and I can bring players back, I mean, Logan Ketterer, 100%, Diego Luna, Nick Ross, Eder Borelli, Seb, Dylan. Yeah. Like, our squad is really, really good. It's hard to think of players that I don't want.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that core that has been here all 3 years, many of them I would bring back. But on the flip side, I think it is crucial that our squad gets younger. Mm-hmm. I think our average age is hovering about, you know, above 27 years old. We do have some elder statesmen in the squad, and I just wonder how sustainable that is.
Sure.
Not that anyone's level is like shockingly dropped or anything, but
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that said, though, continuity is important. So I'm kind of like in two minds about it. It's hard to think. I think who will leave, I mean, Eder, I mean, he's out on loan. I don't know that Zach, maybe Jose Aguinaga finds a new challenge. Niall Logue, that's kind of a weird one. He's out on loan, but again, doing really well out on loan. So does he get another shot?
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, and in USL, as we know, most contracts are year to year. So it's just really hard to say, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I think there are only a couple of players that we have, and it's so weird to say about a side that is so good. Mm-hmm. But I think when we think about Locomotive, we've constantly thought of the individuals being underrated and the team like performing at a high level, but no one recognizing that, you know, it does take talented individuals to make a functioning team. And that was what we were told for so long, is like, oh, well, there's no like standout guy on Locomotive. They're just like a good unit, you know? And that was what was said like at league levels for a long time, or for 2 seasons. And the reality, the upside to that is the fact that if everybody underrates like the individuals, then it's way easier to hold on to them. Like, because they're not going to go out of their way to try to lock anybody down. Especially if you've got them under contract and you know, can charge money. I think the wild card, I mean, if I could bring anybody back, for sure, it would be the folks who I think would be targeted, like for transfers elsewhere. Logan is a huge one. I think, like, obviously the fact that he spent time in MLS this season, you know, plays a big part in that. Diego's the other one, in that, you know, I just don't think we know how quickly his stock is rising in the eyes of other teams. like based on what he's doing for Locomotive, like is that moving the needle enough to where someone would want to like go out of their way to go get him? And we honestly, like, we also don't know the status of his contract. Like, I think we were told at one point that it was multi-year, but like, who knows what the options are in that, or if there's any sort of like clauses that allow him to leave, like for, you know, a certain amount or something like that. Anyways, but those are the two players that I would like go out of my way to say, I think
franchise tag.
Yeah. Like, I think, I think the upside, and this is no disrespect to any of our players because I want desperately to keep most of them. Like,
I would love to have Lucho back.
Yeah.
Love.
I think Mark has done actually a really good job. And I think we were talking about this like a little bit like adjacent to this topic in the group chat recently of Mark does a really good job of finding guys like in their moment, I guess. And like for a guy like Lucho, like he's producing at a high level for USL. Like he's scoring goals for us. He's like doing, he's doing his thing, but he is also a little bit older. Like, and he is also like not someone, he's been other places. Like he seems really comfortable in his situation in El Paso. So, maybe he would be at a risk of leaving. And I think now Seba is kind of in the same category in that, like, I think there would have been a risk, but I think we've now got them in a situation where it's like, why would they go elsewhere? And on top of that, like, because they are a little bit older and maybe like their games change slightly, like they do fit kind of specifically into this team, into this, this setup. And I just think now, like the risk of some of these players leaving is just kind of low because there's like, we've created a really good situation and I think they like playing for Mark. I think the question marks start to arise like, well, one, Nick Ross, like in the I Am Nick Ross video, talked about like wanting to challenge himself at the top level and like getting a shot in MLS, which like was interesting because I don't think we've necessarily seen him as someone who might leave. Certainly wouldn't want to see the back of Nick because I want him to retire from Locomotive and become the color commentator. Because of his performance.
He met his future wife here in El Paso. So yeah. Shout out.
Yes, he did. And then I think the other question mark is Mark, because he is he's so vital to everything that goes on. He is the technical director and the manager. So I'm not getting the feeling, or I'm not seeing like the momentum necessarily around like, oh, some MLS team is going to go out and like make a swoop and like try to grab Mark. But I do think we're hitting like a certain little bit of an inflection point in terms of like him starting to show that like he took this multi-year project, brand new team, built a squad like from scratch and turned it into a contender in 3 years. Like that's an extremely marketable skill in MLS. Absolutely. Because, I think that's just, his
I worry about that, man. I worry that like Inter Miami will get their head out of their ass and come and pluck him from us because everything you just
imagine employing Phil Neville like instead of Mark Lowry.
Fucking yikes is what that is.
Like that's what concerns me is like, because the project is ultimately his, and any sort of movement there means like we have to go find someone who can either do both jobs, or we're literally hiring two people. Like that's the
right. Yeah. Cause that is a 2-person job in other clubs. I mean, Austin Bold just moved Marcelo Serrano up to technical director and hired a new coach, just as a one I can think of right off the top of my head. So, I hope selfishly that level of autonomy is what keeps him here, and I hope that he won't leave us before we win USL. So, yeah. Damn, I didn't even think of Mark. Ouch.
Yeah, that's the only.
That would take me a while to get over.
Oh, so maybe it is. Maybe my answer for who would you absolutely bring back? It's probably Mark because it means that a lot of other people stay. Not to say that there would be a mass exodus if he left, but certainly there would be some players I think who would either go with him wherever he was going, or I mean, in the case of a couple of them, I could see them like joining his staff. Like if he went to an MLS team, like maybe they decide like, hey, that's good timing for me to like hang it up and go, start the transition into coaching. So yeah, no, there's all kinds of catastrophic situations that I'm picturing now. And
Too deep for a Sunday night. Good Lord.
Yeah, a little heavy.
That's a good question.
And it brings us to the next question. Actually, like it's timed quite well. Well, I guess before we move on, I think you did capture the players who I think like are on the fringe and are in danger of like not continuing with the team. I think, I think Jose, unfortunately, Aguinaga is just hasn't like seen the consistency, and seems like a fringe choice. Like Chapa is preferred to him, at the moment. Now I think we'll see plenty of Jose like in the run-in, but in terms of like, the quality of the squad, like I think Mark is always tinkering and trying to improve. So I could see him being on the fringe a little bit. Niall is like, he's a giant really question mark because I think
to get his chance, man.
I think like given how he's done, we've seen other players go on loan from Locomotive and just kind of like they kind of disappear into their new team and they're not really like seen or heard from that much. Niall is an everyday starter for Memphis and is like performing well. So I hope that that's enough to like demonstrate that. And maybe it was just a timing thing for Mark where he's like, hey, Yuma and Mishak like are the pairing, like we're going with it. You're not going to play like every single day like you probably want. You can play every day at Memphis and then like come back and play for us next year. Like, so hopefully that's the plan, but
sure.
But we'll see what happens to the rest of the. I think, you'll see the usual churn this offseason where there's always going to be like a certain amount of those sorts of pieces are going to get moved, and Mark's going to refresh the squad as he did this last year, but try to maintain that core group, I think. And yeah. Last year he had to replace, Omar Salgado and Chiro and Toko, like two of the key pieces to the OG squad. So
true.
He's been quite adept at improving there. But getting nostalgic like that and talking about the Locomotive more broadly actually leads us nicely into the next question from Eric Bauer at eBau27. He asked, if the Locomotive were to start a Ring of Honor, who do you think deserves to be the first name in?
Yeah, so first name in, I think it absolutely has to be an original, like season 1 Loco. Mm-hmm. And again, I would probably go with Logan Ketterer. I mean, he's consistency personified, been with the club since day one, really. And been just a complete like professional and really an elite keeper at this level for us. And at MLS, he showed out at MLS as well. So
yeah,
I think he'd be very deserving of an honor like that. Yeah, and he's like an Iron Man too. I mean, he really doesn't miss matches unless we're rotating, and that's very like we were forced to play other players because he was with Portland. But yeah, he's probably the first one I would go with. Yeah,
I think Logan's a great shout because he's basically been as you said, like basically every match he's been available for, he's played. Like there's
right,
and he's played a lot. Yeah, it's interesting because I think in those sorts of situations, you always kind of think of there would be like a goal scorer who would end up in there. And I don't know that we have that guy yet in terms of like the forward who has put his name like on the ring, if that makes sense. I think we have, and it probably is the fact that Logan is like the name that jumps out as that consistent player who's always been there. I think it makes total sense because we've been a defensive team largely. So
I was just going to say, when I saw this question, my mind was going through like center backs and fullbacks.
Yeah.
And even though like Josue Aron Gomez is our record goal scorer, even though Jerome Kieswetter joined the club mid-season and changed our fortunes completely. I mean, I don't think they're very important in our history, obviously, and our
for
present.
Sure.
But I don't know, something about the guys at the back, like that foundation really just jumped out to me, at least. Yeah.
And then, I mean, I think like, I don't want to like overstep too much, but if we can get a couple more seasons of Lowry ball as well, whenever we get it, in 20 years when they finally build a stadium,
hope it won't be that long.
There's got to be a Mark Lowry stand,
absolutely,
in the stadium. I think
the Lowry end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it because I think when you think it, just for the reasons we just said, with he's built from a sporting perspective, everything that Locomotive has done has been him. Like.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I just
he really is our like Arsene Wenger.
Yeah, like he is Locomotive, like for all intents and purposes. For
sure.
Because he completely owns the footballing side of things, and so yeah, not to get existential on. Happy commute, everybody. Right. Hope you're ready to start your work week with some just like existential dread. I think we'll just take a quick break and then we'll dive into a preview of the Colorado Springs matchup. Thanks everybody for sending in your questions. And if you want to have your questions answered on the show, all you got to do is tweet at us around the time that we record. We send out a tweet and you can just reply to it and we'll talk about it. But yeah, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back to talk Colorado Springs. Welcome back to Seriously Loco. Mikka, we got Colorado Springs coming up. As we said at the top of the show, not the walkovers that they once were, despite what Locomotive's record historically against them has been, and even this season we've performed well against them. Recently, Switchbacks kind of making a push, and they are currently sitting second in the Mountain.
Yeah, I mean they're the best of the rest, as I put it on our outline. History's on our side in this match, in this fixture. 4 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses against Switchbacks. Granted, a weaker Switchbacks than we were used to seeing back then. This is much stronger.
Sure.
Haji Berry is absolutely going off.
It's crazy.
21 goals in 23 games and 4 assists. I think when we did our like preview pod and kind of rounded up the transfers, I thought it was a good signing, but I had questions whether he could do it in the Western Conference. Well, he absolutely can.
Yeah. Questions answered.
Yeah. I mean, he scored goals for, Fury, North Carolina FC, but I mean, he's reached a whole nother level with Switchbacks. Absolutely the signing of the season. And there's still 11 games to go. So he could potentially break Cameron Lancaster's single season goal scoring record. I think he's a record holder, right? 25.
Yeah.
So
shit, at this rate, he will do it. Like, it's almost a question of like when.
Correct. Yeah.
like how quickly will he break it?
Right. Yeah. 21 goals with plenty of games left to play.
It's insane.
So he's one that we'll definitely need to watch out for. Michi and Galina as well, 8 goals, 8 assists. I mean, the players from Africa are really going off for switchbacks of the Ghanaian and the Congolese. So, just crazy stuff. Again, though, history's on our side. I think we can wrap them up, but I think we're going there. I don't think we are going. Them. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we are going. It is. At Widener Field.
In 3 days.
Yep. On Wednesday. So. And a 7 p.m. Mountain kickoff. So a nice, comfortable kickoff for everybody in prime time. But yeah, Wednesday night on the road, not Locomotive's like favorite time slot, I would say. There's something about Wednesday night road games that I feel like we normally kind of come out flat a little bit.
Right.
But maybe generating some positive momentum off of the Sac Republic game, maybe it plays to Locomotive's favor. Switchbacks, on the other hand, played to a 1-1 draw against RGV yesterday. And they were actually down to 10. RGV scored a goal through Frank Lopez in the 80th minute, and Matt Mahoney scored a 91st minute equalizer for Colorado Springs despite being down to 10. So, kind of bailed out the point there. And then they had what could be considered a very disappointing loss to New Mexico United a couple of games ago.
True.
But the interesting thing is that Ingolina was suspended coming out of the New Mexico game. He was sent off right at the end of the game for throwing the ball back at a ball boy. But if I remember correctly, I think his suspension was only 2 games coming out of that. So I think he actually will be back in contention he was suspended for 2 matches and fined an undisclosed amount. So the game against Real Monarchs and the game against RGV would have been Ingolina's suspension. So he will be, in theory, he'll be back for this match, which not the best news. I wish they had made it a 3-game suspension. That would have been nice. Because Ingolina has actually played quite well against us as well, despite the fact that, we've gotten the results against Switchbacks this season. I think Ingolina he's a little bit of a nightmare in terms of his just ability to run at people and create chances. As you said, 8 goals, 8 assists is no small return. That's terrifying output from a player just sitting in the shadow of the 21 goal striker Haji Berry.
On the other side of the ball, though, Colorado Springs are very poor.
Yes.
They've conceded 38 goals, which I think is one less than bottom of the division, Real Monarchs. So not great. One of the worst goal concession rates in the league. They've only got 2 clean sheets on the season. That'd be like tragedy if that was us. There would be an inquest.
They've conceded the most goals in the Mountain Division. And well, I was gonna say that they were.
Oh yeah, they have 1 more than Monarchs.
They have 1 more than Monarchs. Yeah. So the Mountain overall has been a little bit more airtight than the rest of the league, because as I looked around to see where they stood among the rest of the league, there are some pretty shocking numbers out there. Los Dos, and I mean, Vegas has conceded 56 goals in 24 games.
I'm telling you, the Pacific Division is the worst division in USL. I'm sorry to say.
Because even SKC2 has only conceded 45, which is still terrible. But I mean, Vegas 56,
Loudoun United 49.
Yeah, New York Red Bulls
251.
But yeah, Vegas by far the worst, I guess. But so Colorado Springs in they almost have a vibe for me of like 13-14 Liverpool, where it was like they scored 100 league goals and had Suarez like as a record setting goal scorer, but conceded over 50 like in their, in that same campaign. And that's why they didn't, win the league or walk the league, basically, like was because they conceded so many goals. Colorado Springs have scored 50 goals this season, which is a ton more than everybody else in the mountain, but they've conceded so many that they have a worse goal differential. Despite scoring 50 goals, they have an 8 goal lower differential than we do with 35 goals, like 15 less goals scored. And we have a positive 8 like goal differential compared to theirs. So that is how leaky this defense is for Colorado Springs. And I mean, on the road in Colorado, tough to make predictions about exactly like what's going to go down. But I guess the question comes down to like, do we think that this is going to turn into a case of score one more? Or do you think that Locomotive's defense is really what ultimately like is going to make the difference in this one?
Yeah, I think defense is going to be really, really important. It's just hard to say how we're going to come out, because if Yuma's not ready to start, then yikes.
Yeah.
I think Boehner can do absolutely fine there, but it will change things. It will change the way that we play. It'll put the onus on Mishek a lot more to not only be imperious in defense, but start our attacks. So, yeah, I don't know. Containing Haji Berry, I mean, that's a big job for the midfield. I think this is a game that Diego Luna could really thrive in, because he gives us that defending from the front.
Sure.
Just sheer pace and athleticism from the young man is going to be really helpful for, this free scoring switchback side. I just find it really interesting that they're so leaky in defense, because Brendan Burke, their coach, was a center back as a player. So, and I don't know if his Bethlehem Steel side was that leaky. I honestly couldn't tell you, but just some really interesting numbers this switchback side is putting up. I'm hoping that we can continue the undefeated streak against them and get out of there alive on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think going to Widener too on a Wednesday is like preferable to it being, full on a Saturday or something like that. I think atmosphere wise, like you could probably expect it to be a little bit more chill out there this time around. And then I think too, one of the biggest things in this one, as we spoke about, in terms of Mark's like team selection and when he's going to employ the attacking mids versus, packing the midfield a little bit more. I do think this is one where Colorado Springs like might try to turn it into a shootout. And I think it's going to do us a lot of good to send the team out to just keep that from happening. Like, I think in any scenario where it's not end to end, we just stand so much more of a chance. I think like if we let it get into just up and down, like whatever leads Liverpool today, like if it just is like counter after counter, that's just it's not gonna be good. And I think ultimately like Richie, Nick, and then I mean it's likely Brahim, but maybe Chappa's in there. I don't know. I think like packing that midfield and just cutting, even just fouling people like when they're starting to break, like all of those sorts of things, just to kind of throw the tax down for their for their wheels as they get spinning, and just keep the game like choppy. I think that'll actually like play in our favor, where if we can put pressure on them in the sense that like we're possessing the ball and keeping them like in their own half, then we're probably going to do okay.
Right.
And
I
then
would
just
say,
like
yeah, absolutely.
trying to, because limiting them on the break is going to be the biggest thing for me.
That was going to be my next point, is keep it choppy, but also keep the pitch small.
Yeah.
And I think actually this would be probably a good time to go back to the diamond, and just, have the numerical advantages in midfield that we're used to having. Because the last thing we need in a match like this with opponents like this is to have guys get isolated or allow them to stretch the pitch, especially coming off having just played 3 days prior, having to go on the road and do that. I think if we can keep the pitch, keep spaces closed and be compact when we're not on the ball, then I think that'll be good. Not sit back, not park the bus or anything, but just be smart about the spaces we're allowing them to occupy and the numbers we're allowing them to put in any one area of the pitch, if that makes sense.
Sure. So as far as our pick 'em each week, we pick the score, the goal scorer, and the result of the game. And so Mikka, what are you thinking for this Switchbacks game? How do you think it's going to play out? Short rest, all those things, Wednesday night on the road, taken into account. What do you think is going to transpire?
Well, I still back the boys to win. I think we rested very important players for this one. Yeah. Nick Ross and Lucho among them. I think Lucho comes back. I'll back him to score at least one. And I don't think we're getting a clean sheet though, because while Colorado Springs don't keep clean sheets, their opponents tend to not either.
Right.
And they've hung 5-4 to consistently on folks. I don't think that'll happen to us, but I do think we'll concede. So I'm going to go 2-1 Lucho scoring.
Yeah, that's I like the 2-1 shout. I think, Colorado Springs, the last time they were held scoreless was a 2-0 loss to Orange County on July 1st. Mm-hmm. They've scored in every game since then. So it's been a long time since anyone's held them scoreless, and that was actually at home. So maybe Locomotive can repeat the feat, but I won't be the one to predict that. This is an interesting one because I think our games against Switchbacks came relatively early, not in the sense that like Haji Berry was obviously like already doing his thing by the time we played them, but I think their expectations are starting to shift somewhat as a team. So it'll be interesting to see how they show up for this one. I'm a little torn. I'm thinking, because I do think Locomotive can exploit the fact that they are leaky defensively. And with Lucho back, Nick in midfield, I do think there's a good opportunity there. I'm gonna say we do one better than United did in their win over Switchbacks, and I'll say 3-1.
Okay.
It's a little bit bold, but I do think, and I'll tell you if it's going to transpire, I'll tell you exactly how it happens. A goal inside the first 10 minutes, a goal on the hour mark, and a goal in stoppage time. That's how we would score 3 goals. That's how we would score 3 goals.
That's like the perfect attacking game.
If it doesn't happen like that, then it's not 3. Like, there's no scenario in my mind where we're like blitz them for 3 or get 3 like in a random spread. It's literally there's one in the opening 10 minutes, one in the hour mark. Because that's just like how we work. Like, we press really hard for a goal early on, and then we kind of like manage the game as the first half goes on. Second half, we like seem to surge from halftime, like out to the hour. And then like we oftentimes, like if we have a lead, then we get that opportunity to like kill the game. But
I will say Switchbacks concede quite a lot of penalties. They can be a little bit reckless in that regard. So maybe some of our movement catches them out there as well. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say the player who's been consistently like showing up, especially in these couple of road games, as still having good performances even when we weren't like at our absolute sharpest. I'll say Seb Velasquez gets a goal.
I like that. Yeah. He's been phenomenal lately.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
He's been really good. And even in some performances where we haven't been like at our absolute sharpest by any stretch, got the goal on the road in San Antonio in the unfortunate loss. And then, he's just played really well recently. So I just back him to follow that up with a goal. But I mean, yeah, this is a tricky one to predict. And for, like we said, like Wednesday night on the road, it's just it's a weird one to predict.
Well, the nice thing about it is that a poor result wouldn't be like catastrophic table wise.
Sure.
We've got enough of a cushion, but we want to win.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's what it's not catastrophic in the table in the mountain. I am just starting to side eye Phoenix because they did jump ahead of us in the Western Conference, like in terms of total points.
Yeah.
So that'll just be something for us to start to pay attention to, like as we get to the business end of the season. A little early for that, obviously, but we'll see how it keeps going. Yeah, it's a little strange. Our next two games are on Wednesday nights on the road because we don't actually play this coming weekend.
And that was and I think Sac Republic was our last Saturday match at home. So,
is it all Sundays from here on out?
I don't know, actually. Whoa, as I throw my phone.
Oh, wait, it's a Wednesday. Wait, it's a Wednesday against Rail Monarchs is the next home match.
It's 3 straight Wednesdays.
What the shit? At USL, what you doing? I mean, it's not going to change the fact, obviously, that like Eighth Notch is going to show up, but holy shit, we only play it on Wednesdays at home.
For the rest of the season. Yeah.
No, we get one Sunday in there against OKC.
Okay.
Holy shit. Wow, so through that whole tough run, we don't even get like a marquee, like nice Saturday night matchup or anything like that. We get one Sunday night at home. That's crazy.
Yeah. Good Lord.
Wow. USL Championship.
But the club is making it worth our while because they've got some announcements coming up and the Sugar Skull is now out and all that, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, Noche de Locos like on the way, I guess. So we'll I guess we'll see what these other announcements are about. They've made a couple of like low key announcements. Yeah. I feel, but they've been very coy.
That's the word.
Well, to all of you who have listened to this, hopefully you've enjoyed the episode. We, as I said at the top of the show, we're available on all the major podcast platforms, wherever you find your podcasts, and we're also on social media, so you can follow us at Seriously Loco. Thanks so much to everybody just for your support. We saw Mikka like probably one of the coolest things that I've seen, like in regards to the podcast. Like we've had so many cool interactions with listeners and like running into you guys and talking to you about the games. But like, this was the first like third party like reference I ever saw to our podcast.
Yes, there was some legend in section 105. He had Seriously Loco on a pirata.
Like
he had Seriously Loco like ironed on his shirt, on his kit.
Yeah.
Please help us identify this man. I will send you a Seriously Loco scarf for your troubles, because that was awesome. We posted a picture of it on Twitter, so if anyone knows who this man is, let us know, because that just absolutely warmed the heart.
Yeah, that was so cool. And just, like, because it's one thing when, obviously we're pretty close with a lot of people like involved with the club and with Eighth Notch and everything. So the fact that it was like someone that none of us know,
right,
who was like repping us, that was crazy. Like, I've never seen something like that.
Yeah. Wow. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. No, you absolute legends. Every one of you. And so, thanks so much for obviously listening. And then, for all the questions and everybody who voices their opinion or even just follows the Locos at all. Like, you've made a really awesome one. Like, I think we have a pretty cool little tight-knit community here at Seriously Loco. And then as well, you've created a really cool atmosphere around the club in what is its best season so far. So continue to enjoy it, and we will be there along the way. And until next time, guys, stay loco.